On this week's show, Megan describes her experiences at the Black Lives Matter demo in Berlin, which just became the first German state to pass an anti-discrimination law. Not that the police unions think they have a problem. Also, why won't the German government count racial profiling cases? It's a new Megan's Megacan.
Hello everybody, good evening. It's another Megan's Megacan. I am Megan. We're here in partnership with Berliner magazine. I'm also here with my mild hangover. But on a much more positive note, the lovely Konrad Werner.
Hello.
Oh, damn it. So close. So close to getting that right. How are you today? Are you doing better than me?
I'm fine. We should say we're recording this on a Sunday evening, not on a Friday, so it's kind of quite a different vibe.
Usually you get like excited Feierabend Friday, Megan.
Yeah.
You are not getting that today. No.
We're getting the existential dread of a Sunday evening.
Slight existential dread, yes. For lots of reasons. But why don't we have a cocktail in a can just to, take the edge off?
Yeah, that'll make you feel better, at least in the short term.
At least in the short term, yes, it's a short-term solution. So, I was in the supermarket yesterday, Kaufland, and I saw some things, and I remembered that you really liked the lemon Gorbachev vodka Megacan.
Oh, yeah, that was
So
nice.
I thought I wouldn't get you that. I would get you two other variations on that and give you a choice, both of which are likely to be quite disgusting.
Right.
We have a Gorbachev mixed... I thought they were both Gorbachev. It's not. One is the P2 Premium Caipirinha.
Okay.
And it's got a prawn on it and a lime.
But not a prawn in it, I hope.
Well, let's hope not. That would be awful. Like a prawn cocktail Megacan. Jeepers. But the other one is the Gorbachev mixed Sex on the Beach Club Edition.
The club edition. Is that what all the kids drink in the clubs?
God knows. Well, the clubs are shut. Probably because of things like this. Been shut down. Corona's like, no more Sex on the Beach Club Edition for you.
So they've had to ship them all from the clubs to the Spätis so that people can drink them in the comfort of their own homes.
Yeah.
2 meters away from each other.
Well, we'll see. These are also in the taller cans, like the slimline cans.
Okay,
so, which one would you like?
I'd like the Sex on the Beach Club edition.
Yeah,
please.
you would.
You can always tell what I'm about to choose, can't you?
I can, yeah. Yeah.
Probably before even as you're walking up the stairs.
Probably.
Right.
I did actually think I was going to be left with the Sex on the Beach, but I'm now thinking that I'm just left drinking rum again. So what always happens when I branch out from our usual things, I end up drinking rum, which I never want to do.
The options are always slightly more limited than you think.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's drink.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh God, it smells like Mayday.
Oh my God. Okay. Do you know where this is taking me back to? This is taking me...
Ibiza?
This is taking me... Close. It's taking me back to my first holiday without my mum in Turkey when I was 18.
Oh, wow.
And we had a bottle of that peach schnapps.
Oh, yeah.
What's it called?
Archers.
Archers, yeah. And we drank that. It tastes like that.
I'm so glad I'm not drinking that. I can't drink Archers at all, ever, since New Year's Eve 2001, I believe. No, 2003. 2003.
Yeah, it's very much a drink that for the young drinker.
Absolutely, nobody should be drinking.
It's a drink for the...
Archers and lemonade used to be my drink until it really wasn't.
Yeah, but it's it's weird. I guess Sex on the Beach has got some kind of peach thing in it, generally.
Yeah, I think it does. It's like peach and, I don't know, vodka maybe?
It's interesting because on the can you can see that the Gorbachev eagle, which is he's looking all stately on the main thing, and then down below he's flying around all mad in a big yellow sunset colour.
Oh, so he is.
So he's like really
day to evening. He's like Feierabend eagle at the bottom.
Yeah.
I've just got this prawn and a big lime, and I really don't know how well this is going to go down.
No. Well, there you go. Anyway.
Okay.
So, it's been a big week.
It's been a big week, and we have a lot of very important stuff to discuss. And I think it's also kind of important to point out that we are obviously two white people about to discuss a lot of this week's events to do with the protests that have been happening in response to the death of George Floyd. I don't know, I've been thinking a lot this week, as I think a lot of people have been, and a lot of white people and non-black people. This is a really difficult, and I spend a lot of time mouthing off my outrage in response to stuff this, like my white liberal outrage, and I think it's not really enough. I don't even know really what I'm trying to say, but I just kind of wanted to voice my own discomfort, and it's probably discomfort that a lot of people are thinking or feeling, and it is definitely discomfort and uncomfortableness and sort of shame that as people who are not members of the black community should be feeling. You know, everyone's sort of thinking like, okay, well, what do we do, and how do we do better? And I don't really have any answers to that, but I guess I just kind of wanted to address that is kind of there, I think, for a lot of people.
So you went to the protest yesterday.
I did go to the protest.
Alexanderplatz.
Yesterday.
Along with an estimated at least 15,000 people.
Yeah, it was crazy. Full disclosure, I wasn't there for a huge amount of time, but it was like an incredible experience. Like we arrived at Alex, and it was like the train was full, and like the majority of people I'd say on that were going to it. It was, you couldn't, like there was queues like coming out of the U-Bahn stations and stuff. Like it was really, really full. They
stopped people going after a while. They had to block people off.
Yeah, I think they were kind of, I couldn't, it was also very difficult to kind of, you know, when you're in one of these things, like I couldn't, and I'm also quite short, so I couldn't really see what was happening, but I sort of managed to get around the whole of Alexanderplatz, like the Platzy bit, and the kind of little roads around it were all kind of full, or at least on the, yeah, and it was crazy. It was quite a strange demo in lots of ways because it was a silent demo. So there wasn't really like a stage or speeches or any of that. There wasn't necessarily that much of a focal point, but it was incredible to see like so many people there, and so many people from very, very, very different walks of life. Yeah. I think when you, like, all of the communities, from what I could see, seem to be like represented there. Like a lot of young people, a lot of kids. Also quite strange to be at a protest where like most people are wearing masks. The vast majority of people wearing masks. But which actually wasn't that weird. I don't know whether, I was thinking about this, I don't know whether it's because my eyes have adjusted to seeing people in masks now.
How did the people react to the police, and how did the police behave as far as you could see?
From my experience there on the ground, I don't think I actually saw any law enforcement, to be honest.
Oh. There were 800 officers there.
Yes, I don't, and I'm usually very, very aware. So I was at the protest outside the US Embassy last week, and that was obviously I was very aware of the police presence there. But yesterday, not so much, but I guess I was only there for like a little bit, and I wasn't really in the main kind of big bit because you couldn't get in. It was too full by the time I arrived to kind of get into the thing. Right. But there did seem to be reports like a few things, and you were telling me there was like quite a few arrests made.
93 arrests. And there were also, I should also say that this wasn't only in Berlin, it was all over Germany. In every big city there were similarly sized protests. And there was particularly violence. There was some violence in Hamburg. That's to be explored. Hamburg, that's where there's a really big left-wing scene there, and there's often trouble when the police come out in Hamburg.
But also, you know,
I think that the German political establishment has been quite taken aback by all this. I think at the start of the week, they were very much like, they didn't even comment. Like no one in Merkel's government commented on what was happening in America until maybe Tuesday, or maybe Monday or Tuesday. Like up until then, it was just, this is a domestic issue in America, and it quickly became clear, especially towards the end of the week, that people were taking it very seriously all over the world and in Europe.
Yeah.
And there were big demos happening in London and in Paris as well, and in Tunisia. And I think that, and you could really see that from the way that the police reacted, and also the Berlin government was very quick to announce that it had just passed a new anti-discrimination law.
Yes.
Which it had been working on for a while.
Yes.
But now it said, like, oh, by the way, we've got a new anti-discrimination law, which also...
Which was passed on Thursday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about this anti-discrimination law. Surely discrimination is illegal anyway.
Yeah, but only in certain contexts.
Great.
I mean, it is.
So
it's basically illegal in the sense that it's against the Constitution.
Yes.
There's a bit in the German Constitution which says you're not allowed to discriminate. We never discriminate.
Right. But in terms of actual laws that uphold that.
Yeah. So, but what the complaint has often been, especially when it comes to the police behaviour and police brutality and racial profiling, which is a really big problem and happens all the time, and there is no recourse for people who feel that they have been a victim of racial profiling or police abuse, racist police abuse, up until now. According to this new law, that you can sue individual officers and you can call them to account for their behaviour, and that is quite new, and that might have quite a big effect, at least judging by the reaction of the CDU and the police unions. They seem to be they seem to be taking it quite seriously and saying, the police unions are sort of saying that that now they can't send police officers to Berlin if there's as often happens, different police forces from different states get sent somewhere for football matches or whatever. Yeah. And then they were threatening with not sending them because of then they would be liable for any of their behaviour, and they would also put a burden of proof on the police person, on the police officer, rather than on the alleged victim of the violence. That's
not a great reaction from the police union or the ruling, the CDU or the union, CDU, CSU. Yeah, that's...
Well, police unions in general are very defensive. I believe this is a thing in the United States as well, that police unions are always like the more hardcore right-wing version of the police. They're the more politicized, not right-wing, but they're the more politicized version of the police.
Wow.
And
they're not left-wing.
They kind of no, but they are not, like, police unions are not afraid to make political statements in public.
Yes.
In the same way.
Well, that is kind of what unions do.
Right.
But it seems very, very strange to me because, I was looking at some of the response to this law being brought in and being passed in Berlin, particularly from, CDU politicians. And I'm, genuinely quite appalled that some of them would actually utter those words, considering what is happening globally this week and the protests that have been happening in not just in America, but in German cities.
Yeah, and
the lad down in Baden-Württemberg, Thomas Blenke,
of the CDU, he's a CDU politician down there.
He is, and he said, Germany is not the USA. We don't have a racism problem in the police.
Exactly.
And it's so startlingly either willfully ignorant or just lies. How can you be so... I mean, I know you're a bloody CDU politician down in Baden-Württemberg, but how can you be so out of touch? And also, if we don't have a racism problem in the police and you're asking people to have faith in the legal system, because that was the other argument that people were making, there already are anti-discrimination laws that exist, and if people can bring it to court and if you're asking people to have faith in the legal system and the officers who are employed as police officers to uphold that law, then why is this anti-discrimination thing a problem? Are you saying that people are going to misuse the law? Is that something we do? And then in which case do we trust any of our laws? Or are we saying that it's maybe not, you can't have both things? You can't say we don't have a racism problem in the police and then be unwelcome to anti-racist laws.
I mean, they just don't want any scrutiny, and they don't want to think about it. They
Well,
don't want
tough.
to think about their own system and their own structures in how the police operates.
And
It's the same like Jörg. I can quote someone, Jörg Radek. He was the deputy chairman of the GDP police union. He said anyone who accuses the German police of latent or structural racism was either showing serious gaps in their knowledge about how the police works, or is trying to exploit the measured response of forces for party political purposes. But that was like they
fucking insane, mate. Not you, him. What was his name?
Jörg Radek.
Jörg. What the fuck? Like, what?
But that's kind of what you'd expect the police union to say. But what was slightly more shocking is that this week some crime figures also came out, and it was pointed out in the regular government press conferences. This is the crime figures for the whole federal government and for the federal police. So in the regular federal press conference, it was pointed out that they do not keep track of racial profiling or even crimes committed by police officers. And they don't count those.
So it's not so much gaps in our knowledge; it's gaps in their records.
Exactly, and there are no official records kept of racial profiling incidents, and that is a big problem, because that stops when you don't keep records. It means you can't analyze or do anything about it. You can't you need to that's like the necessary first step is to get some numbers. Assess how big a problem it is.
Yeah, particularly if you were living in a society, which we are, that doesn't actually listen to the experiences of black people living in Germany. Apparently.
So in this was put to the Federal Interior Ministry spokesman in the press conference this week, and he said these are talking about racial profiling. He said these are, to my knowledge, individual cases when measured against the size of the organisation, meaning the police organisation. And then he said, nevertheless, every individual case is taken seriously and included in our structural reappraisal. So what you sort of say, I mean, it's the kind of there's a real blindness to it. There's a real blindness to acknowledging the problem, and that is a state level that I think is that kind of bleeds into everything else. Because as soon as you wheel out this whole bad apples argument, you are refusing to acknowledge that the bad apples actually poison the whole system.
Yeah,
and the
system is set up to protect those bad apples, because they can go to their unions, and their unions will close ranks around them, as unions are required to do. Like a lot of the, I'm in a union as a teacher, and that is what your union is kind of supposed to do. But it, like, when we have this, and that is what we mean by structural and systemic racism. Like these things are set up to protect the people who are already in power, and it's shit.
And you need active rules in place to prevent the racist bad apples doing racist things and getting away with their racist shit. That's what you need, and that's what's
because
lacking.
They are doing. Let's be clear, just to do our homework here. They are doing racist stuff, aren't they?
The German police.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of examples.
Let's go through some.
Okay. Probably the one most famous was in 2005 in Dessau. A Sierra Leonean asylum seeker called Uri Jallo died in his police cell. His burnt body was found in a police cell after basically he'd been taken in because he was out on the streets. There'd been a scuffle. He was tied to the bed. And the police said afterwards that he managed to free himself, produce a lighter, even though he'd obviously been searched before he went into the police cell, because he was supposed to search people. Produced a lighter, tore open his fire-resistant mattress, and set fire to the lining, the stuff inside, the stuffing of the mattress, which is like quite hard to do. And that was the police explanation for how he died. And there was like a lot of went on for years. This is like a long time ago now. It's 15 years ago. It went on for years. There was independent medical examinations, autopsies. Different prosecutors took on the case. Different prosecutors left the case. It took ages. And the upshot of it all was 7 years later, one police officer was convicted of negligence. like that his negligent manslaughter, his negligence had maybe led to the death of this guy, and he got a fine of €10,000. That was his punishment, and all the other officers on duty have never been convicted of that. And that is just like one of these cases where it's clear that racism played a role, and that no one is prepared to, and it's clear that the official explanation doesn't make any sense of how he died. There have been other independent medical examinations and tests that were done which were not admissible in court, which found that he couldn't have set fire to himself without the help of lighter fluid, without some kind of fire lighter. They also found he had broken bones before he died. So it seems like, and even one of the German prosecutors said afterwards, I think there should be a murder investigation based on this new evidence. This is I mean, that's just one example. This is kind of one of the most famous examples that happened a few years ago, but there have been a lot of other similar cases. In the early 2000s, there was a practice of using emetics, like there's like a vomit inducing chemical. They kind of force feed you, and when they catch drug dealers, they used to force people to take emetics so that they would vomit because they thought they had like drugs inside them. So that has been banned in the meantime, but a couple of people died also of African origin in the early 2000s from the use of these emetics. Only 3 years ago in Berlin, there was a case, it was 2016, 4 years ago, when an Iraqi asylum seeker was shot dead outside a refugee home because he started running towards the police, and they thought he had a knife, or they said they thought he had a knife, but he didn't have a knife. And because they'd found a paedophile in the refugee home, and the guy was running over to apparently attack. There was like a weird altercation. He was apparently trying to attack the paedophile that the police were trying to arrest, and the police just shot him dead. And stuff like this happens quite a lot. And it happens every now and again. The point I'm getting to is, as far as I can tell, the only difference between the American police and the German police is that the American police is highly militarized.
Yeah.
They have much more access to like proper military equipment, and they are all armed all the time, so they're more likely to kill people if they get the chance. And also the other difference is, I think that African Germans aren't as aren't as visible a part of the population as African Americans are, and they aren't noticed as much. And I think these cases, when they come and go, they don't really take a big they don't really make a huge press impact like they do in America, which
is also like awful. And this is again part of the work that like we all have to do, because I'm sitting here hearing this and I'm like absolutely horrified, and I'm also like, you should know this already. It is all of our responsibility as particularly as white people to educate ourselves about the horrors. And what you've spoken about are just the kind of the really extreme cases that rightly should be discussed, and everyone should be outraged over. But there's the countless things that happen every day, the kind of interactions between police and black people here in Germany that is not reported, as you said, in police things, that it's like it just doesn't happen. And then people say, oh well, they're just like isolated incidents. But if you actually listen to the experiences of black people living here and black Germans, it's part of their every day that they have to deal with day in and day out. And it is our unbelievable privilege to be able to educate ourselves about this rather than experience it and know it experientially rather than. And I hope that this is like, I do definitely feel, and I'm not sure why this is suddenly, because we've had instances like this where something huge happens in the States, like just the absolute horror of what happened to George Floyd. And I think like it's inconceivable. But, we've sort of had kind of awful cases like this before, but it seems like it's really like, and I don't know whether it's because it's happening in these weird COVID times, and we're in this weird situation which is terrible for so very, very many people, particularly people of color in many situations. As a world, we are all weirdly experiencing, for once, like this thing. Like, I think every country in the world has had some kind of response to COVID-19, and as such, is, I don't know, maybe we're all just a bit more focused on our collective humanity. Also, I think people have more time to like go out and protest and things like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people aren't. I mean, a lot of people aren't going out to protest as well because they're worried about it, aren't they? Which
is also fine. Like, I did have a bit of a moment yesterday when it was getting like quite close where I was, and I was a bit like, I'm not sure we're all safe here. You know, even though it is outdoors, we're incredibly close to each other, and it's absolutely fine for people to not want to protest because there is so much other stuff that people can be doing. And also protesting is great, but it is also a very kind of performative form of like, as if you are a non-black person, like a performative kind of like form of allyship. And there's lots of other things we can be doing, giving our money to organizations.
Yeah. Who can you give money to?
Yeah, so I have, and I know that lots of other people have been. There've been lists circulating on social media about organizations in the States that you can donate to. I think I donated to one. I saw a particularly horrifying video of like a young black protester who was being very peaceful and sending messages of like love from the front, like kneeling, I think, to the police in front of him who were all in riot gear, and they just came out and lifted him and like arrested him. And it was anyway. So I think like there's things that you can donate to cover the bail of protesters like that in lots of different cities in America.
The bailproject.org.
Good.
That's one of them.
Yeah. I would also really urge people in Germany or with ties to Germany to look at organizations that you can donate to here, because it's really important. And I think also this is a wake-up call for all of us. This is not, as the CDU would like to have us think, a US problem. It is absolutely a worldwide problem. There's an organization who have their headquarters or like their place in Wedding called Each One Teach One, and they work for the empowerment of the black community here in Berlin and in Germany. And they also have like a Keats library, and they do kind of education stuff and stuff with youth. So I thought they were very cool. So I've been making a donation to them. If you're in a position to do so, and we can also consider making these donations not just like a one-time thing. Even a very small amount of money, you can maybe have a look and think, right, okay, could I give like the price of a Megacan every month to this organisation?
Yeah, there's one called the Kampagne für Opfer rassistischer Gewalt, kop-berlin.de, kop with a K. That's one of them, for victims of racist violence. There's also the Initiative Schwarze Menschen in Deutschland, I think, ISD. You can donate to, probably some others.
Also, a lot of people are not. It is a very, very difficult financial time for a lot of people all the time, and with COVID, like even more so. There's still things that you can do which are important, and I think a really big one is just to educate yourself, and educate yourself in a responsible way. You don't need to be maybe seeking out black people and asking them about their experiences, because these experiences are well documented and we have not been listening. So there are so many amazing podcasts and articles. Yes.
There's an Uri Jallo initiative called Break the Silence. You can, if you Google initiative Uri Jallo, you can find that. And I think the German Black Lives Matter is connected to that as well.
Yeah. There's also having awkward conversations with people in your life about this issue.
Have you had any of those?
No. Well, a few. And I think as a teacher, that is another thing that I have been doing to some extent, and trying to make sure that there's like a range of voices in my classroom. You know, as an English teacher, I get to the enormous privilege of like discussing these issues through texts with students, which is a really great thing to be able to do. And I have not been making enough of that, and not making sure that like having diversity in a curriculum is fine, but I'm really not committed to like having an anti-racist curriculum. Yes. So you can have conversations with the people in your life. It's tricky. And the other thing is like, this is a really difficult conversation. And if you are not a black person, like you're going to feel awkward, and that is okay. And you are going to fuck up, and you're going to say the wrong things. And it's okay. And if you are...
Well, it's difficult because people don't like it when you call them racist.
No.
And people react in a very emotional way if you call them racist.
And I think we have the wrong conversation around this, and this is something that people have been talking about an awful lot. And you see, the thing is, like, it's not enough to be non-racist; you have to be anti-racist. And I think this is the problem. We should all be working, and particularly our institutions, like our educational institutions and our policing institutions and our legal institutions. We are never going to eradicate the prejudices that we are born with. We can be the most kind of try our very best to be educated and empathetic and all of this stuff, and we're never going to be like not racist like that. And if we keep having this idea of like someone is either a racist or not racist, then it leaves no. The aim is to kind of be anti-racist, to look within ourselves, to look within our things, and unpick all of this stuff rather than getting defensive about it. Yeah, that's what the police need to do as well, please.
Yes, that is true.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that everything that we wanted to say?
Yeah, I think so. I'm afraid I haven't got any like funny news stories to end with.
Well, I think that's okay. I don't think we need to.
Sometimes we can get by without funny news stories.
And sometimes it is really, really important for us to sit and not try and make ourselves feel better.
Okay.
Not even drunk on my Megacan. Yeah. There are also other demos happening if you are comfortable putting your mask on and doing that. There's one happening on Sunday. So that's Sunday the 14th, where they're stretching like a band of solidarity from, I think, the Siegersäule to, I don't know, somewhere near like some like Neukölln, I think.
What's the band made of?
I think people. I think we're going to go out, and you can also do it from your own home if you live along the route, or you can do it online, and that is with Unteilbar,
right?
Which is the organisation we've talked about before, who held a big kind of anti-racism marches last year.
Massive.
Yeah. And then there is the sort of and I am going to check this date, definitely. It's towards the end of the month, which is the official kind of Black Lives Matter Berlin protest or march, and that is on Saturday, June 27th at 1 p.m. Alexanderplatz, then going to the Siegersäule, the Victory Column.
Oh, right. That's going to be massive.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody.
Have a good week.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.